My name is Charles Creso. I'm asking the City Council to add to its legislative agenda a declaration opposing Governor Inslee's stated desire to locate a massive methanol to plastics plant in the heart of Tacoma. This has the potential for disastrous widespread impact. It demands your probing questions on behalf of Tacoma's citizens and safety. This could be a mistake that will haunt Tacoma for years to come. Let's look at key issues. Jetliners filled with highly volatile jet fuel slammed into the Twin Towers in New York, and we all watched it over and over again on the news. Now imagine a fully fueled jetliner slamming into the largest methanol facility in the world between Tacoma and northeast Tacoma. Concussion blasts heard 20 miles away. Commencement Bay filling with toxic, life-threatening smoke. If there's a temperature inversion when it happens, dangerous gases could be trapped for days or weeks. If there's fog when it happens, corrosive toxic mist could settle on homes, cars, and be unavoidably taken into the lungs. Remember the survivors in New York, lifelong heart health problems and death from toxic fumes. We might as well paint a big red target on Tacoma, on the heart of Tacoma. New Orleans is still suffering from their disaster years later. Imagine plastic resin spilling from a ruptured ship, Exxon Valdez style. That took years to clean up. As we speak, there's a gas disaster unfolding in Los Angeles. People forced from their homes, not for a week, but for months on end. And we all remember the Bellingham natural gas disaster. These disasters are the norm, not the exception. Scientists remind us we are overdue for a magnitude 9 mega earthquake. They are certain that this will happen here again. No structure in the continental United States has been proven to be able to withstand such a high magnitude earthquake in an actual event of that size. Imagine roads buckled, fire engines unable to respond to multiple ruptured tanks or pipelines, ships in the process of being loaded with resin slammed into docks, and fires erupting. Bridges down, people injured, everybody needing help. We've seen it in San Francisco with much smaller earthquakes. Imagine that scenario unfolding in Tacoma, and all the while the South Sound is filling up with smoke. The evacuations local government would have to coordinate, the adverse economic and health impacts. This has greater potential for spewing hazardous toxins into the air than the garbage incineration plant that was opposed by the City Council. We need you to step up to the plate again. Show us that quality of life and safety of our citizens is more important than the agenda of mega corporations with a track record of disaster. Thank you.
I'm here to address the concerns many of us have for the proposed methanol refinery on the tide flats. First and foremost, fresh water. Depending on what week you check the website of the foreign investment company that is proposing this refinery, it will use somewhere between 7,200 and 15,000 gallons of fresh water a minute, all day long, every day of the year, primarily from the Green River. Note, during the summer months, that is roughly a quarter of the Green River's capacity. The potential negative effects to the river's ecosystem are obvious. Also, this amount of water is roughly what the whole population of Tacoma already uses. We just went through the worst drought in history. Residents were asked by the city to conserve water. Global warming indicates our fresh water, our most precious natural resource, will become even more scarce and valuable in the future. And now we are selling it off to in gigantic quantities to a foreign country under a 30-year lease? Doesn't this raise red flags? Power. This refinery will use enough electricity to power over 320,000 households. Obviously, this greater demand would eventually increase the cost of electricity for the residents of Tacoma. And danger, as you heard in the previous speaker, this behemoth refinery will process and store huge amounts of highly flammable methanol and be less than a mile away from the already approved LNG Leviathan, Puget Sound Energy's extremely volatile liquefied natural gas storage facility. And with 80,000 barrels of crude oil already passing by daily on rail, what we are creating on the Hylobos wetlands is a fossil fuel time bomb in the shadow of almost assured future earthquakes. Did we learn nothing from Fukushima? The few supporters of this project tout it as being a green energy alternative. But how is using natural gas, a fossil fuel, acquired far away via fracking, then piped to Tacoma, where it will then be refined and shipped overseas to be used to manufacture plastic, which will then be shipped back to the States to be sold so cheaply it will be given away and tossed in the street. How is this a green alternative? Yes, China needs to stop using coal for their health and ours, but this refinery of fossil fuels to make plastic is not green. Ask the Sierra Club. Plastic is killing our oceans. The only green aspects of this proposal that I see are the faces of presidents printed on paper for the pockets of relatively few to the cost of everyone else. Pollution. Up to 1.4 million gallons of chemical wastewater per day are projected that will be generated by this facility with metals like zinc sulfide, copper, and nickel, and it will be piped to the city's wastewater plant for processing. Do you think these chemicals will be a healthy addition to our soil for Tegro? And finally, legacy. What will happen to the property value of the local residents?
Thank you, Mr. Carlton.
Mayor Strickland, City Council members, my name is Bill Cupenzi. I've been a resident of Tacoma for 13 years. I'm an English professor at the University of Puget Sound, where I teach, among other things, environmental humanities. The comments I'm about to make, however, are my own. The last time I spoke before the Tacoma City Council, I was invited as Tacoma's poet laureate to read a poem celebrating the city. My comments today are in prose and take the form of a warning. Tacoma is facing the most serious threat that it has faced in its 141-year history, the methanol refinery that's proposed for the old Kaiser aluminum site. For those unfamiliar with the proposal, a company called Northwest Innovations, funded by the Chinese government, wants to build a $3.4 billion refinery at the Port of Tacoma. It would be the largest refinery of methanol, a toxic chemical used to make plastics in the world. When I first learned the details of the proposal, I had a hard time believing that anyone would propose such a dangerous plan, and an even harder time believing that anyone in our city would consider it. What the methanol refinery plan would do is to sell off two of Tacoma's most precious assets, the health of its citizens and its fresh water, the basis of life itself. During the refining process, carcinogens such as benzene, formaldehyde, and sulfur dioxide would be released into the air. At any one time, there would be 112 million gallons of methanol stored in Tacoma. Producing, storing, and shipping methanol threatens public health and poses an ever-present danger of catastrophic spills or explosions. Tacoma's residents of color and residents of lower economic status would bear a greater burden of this risk, since a disproportionate number live within 2 miles of the refinery site. Perhaps not coincidentally, the other place in the U.S. that the Chinese government is funding a methanol refinery is in St. James Parish, Louisiana, part of an area known as Cancer Alley, in which the mostly African-American residents living among a series of petrochemical plants suffer from unusually high rates of cancer. The proposed Tacoma methanol refinery would use 64.4% of all the fresh water the city uses annually. Due to declining mountain snowpacks, the city this past summer asked residents to lower water usage. Long-term climate trends suggest that we will face more shortages in the future. Given this uncertainty, it is foolish to allow a single industry to consume so much water. Although the refinery proponents point to the jobs they claim the plant's construction will create, most of them temporary, the long-term net effect on the local economy will be negative. If the proposed methanol plant is built, it will signal that Tacoma is once again a dumping ground for dangerous and dirty industries and the kinds of employers the city really wants. High technology, green energy, healthcare, financial services will look elsewhere. Tacomans can expect their property values to decline. Could I just finish with 3 more
No,
sentences?
we have 20 people who've signed up.
Thank you very
They've been
much.
waiting.
So thank you for giving me these 3 minutes. I'm coming to you as a chemist and an atmospheric scientist. I teach at the University of Puget Sound. These are my own comments. I want to just echo what's already been said about the dangers of storing liquid natural gas and methanol at these huge quantities. It's a very serious issue, but I want to go on to other issues. The technology that we're talking about, the processes we're talking about, are far from environmentally benign, because upstream these gases are obtained through fracking, and the environmental devastation that that causes upstream is just well known. There's also issues about leakage of methane. Methane is it's a greenhouse gas that's about 30 times more potent on a per molecule basis than carbon dioxide. And so the leakages that we now know, the leakages associated with fracking, are just completely outweigh, I think, any of the savings that you might have been claimed on the basis of the sort of the green technology here. There's two other issues I just want to mention. We know that the Green River Basin, where we are now, we are undergoing a transition that is, the watershed has historically been rated as a mixed rain-snow watershed. That is changing now. In the next decade, we're going to be looking at a predominantly rain watershed. And what that means is, just as Bill mentioned to you before, that we are going to be looking at less snowpack and sort of a chronic situation of water shortages in the summertime here. That's going to happen. It's already upon us. And so this is only going to exacerbate that problem. A couple more issues that I think that just deserve really a careful look at. One of them is the probable effect of warming on the waters of Puget Sound that a project like this will certainly have. We know that warming causes anoxic conditions in the Sound. This is only going to exacerbate that. Okay, and we already know what the effects on salmon and the fishing industries here. It's just bad news all around. Finally, I just want to say the other thing that I hope that gets a very careful look is the effect of this process on the acidity of Puget Sound. We know that copper and nickel are Lewis acids. It's a different way to acidify the Sound than what we've been talking about. Who knows what the impact of that is? We don't really know, but any system of this magnitude is quite likely to have an acidifying effect on the Sound. So there, I have an extra 7 seconds. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Anna,
Actually, thank
sorry.
you. So I was born in Tacoma, and I really love being part of this town, and I simply want it to be heard that I'm opposed to the methanol refining plant that's proposed to take place pretty soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Valerie, followed by Gary Pinckney, Jennifer Bradley, and Bruce Heft.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I stand before you as a humble Tacoma citizen, wishing to express my grave concerns regarding the mega methanol refinery proposed for the Port of Tacoma. I've heard this methanol refinery referred to as green energy, which makes it sound appealing, right? I know I was intrigued, so I did some research, and I've discovered the sole purpose of this type of chemical refinery is basically to produce plastics. Okay, so that's a little bit less desirable. Then I looked into what exactly methanol is, and according to the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, when I looked up methanol, this is the picture I saw. Seriously, a skull and bones. That's pretty jarring, right? I also learned methanol is a colorless liquid that is highly volatile and highly flammable. In its physical state, it's a colorless liquid. Methanol can be easily absorbed into the body by inhalation and or ingestion, causing serious health implications. It presents a physical danger as the vapor mixes well with air, and explosive mixtures are easily formed. Methanol reacts violently with oxidants, causing a fire and explosion hazard. Also, the United States Environmental Protection Agency classified methanol as a HAP, a hazardous air pollutant. HAPs are toxic air pollutants that are known or suspected to cause cancer or other serious health effects, such as reproductive effects or birth defects. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a chemist, but I don't think I really need to be to form an opinion on this. I implore Tacoma's entrusted elected officials to consider these dangers. The health and security of Tacoma's citizens have to be your top priority today, tomorrow, always. I understand that jobs are important and that the port and the city are interested in tax revenue, and of course private investors are attracted to profits. But I have concerns that this mega methanol refinery will create a true water crisis. All life depends on water, and it is a finite and vulnerable resource. Tacoma just experienced a drought in the summer and fall of 2015. Our attention spans cannot be so short as to forget that Tacoma Public Utilities, TPU, asked citizens to cut back on our water use, to not water our lawns, to not wash our cars, to fix leaks and launder only full loads of clothes. In fact, I just received a January mailer yesterday from TPU that celebrated the fact that Tacoma water customers reduced water use by 758 million gallons. Now the city is considering building a mega methanol refinery that will consume millions of gallons of water a day. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. We need citizens to use water wisely, but we also need elected officials to protect our water resources. I know there are some that are in favor of the methanol refinery because they believe it will add jobs or give Tacoma clout or provide an influx of revenue, but I must ask again, at what cost? Will Tacoma remain the city of destiny, or will it become the city of destitution?
Thank you.
Mayor Strickland, I'm Kit Burns, citizen of Tacoma. I'm an architect. I'm also a student at University of Washington. And it's a little bit difficult for me as a graduate of Washington State University to be a student at UW, but I'll overcome my prejudice. You will never see me wearing purple, although no offense to anybody here tonight. I have two topics I'd like to mention. I should say, too, on a game day, my team always wins on Turkey Day, so I'm happy about that. There are many advantages to being a student at UW. Two things I would like to share with you. One is I'd like to invite you to a movie this Friday night. 7 o'clock. I'm with a group of people that have started a thing called Meaningful Movies for Tacoma. And the idea behind our group, it's a network that was started in Seattle, and to show movies that affect the community. We showed recently This Changes Everything about climate change. We showed the movie The House You Live In, important film that addresses some of the things we're talking about today. The movie on Friday night that I'm inviting you to, and I have a handout for everybody, is Return of the River. Talks about dam removal on the Elwha River. And it's really a successful story, and it shows about citizens activism. We're having the director there. So if you can make it, attendance is free. We ask for donations to help pay for the cost of the film and rental of the hall. The second thing I want to do is to bring to you something that was raised on December 8th on the legislative agenda, and it's about investment of public funds. It's regarding the employee retirement pension fund. These funds have high fees. You were requested to approve this as a legislative agenda. I have documents here that show and give you some more background about that than I can in the short time I have here. But I found out that the state of California has paid $3.4 billion in fees for management of their pension fund. I also found out that in Los Angeles, they pay Wall Street $300 million a year. And the retirement system, you were asked to approve investment in private equity. I request that you look at that legislative agenda and change that. You also talked about here, too, about having some of this kept secret, and that's not good in a democracy, and especially with investments. I have a link to an article that I hope you'll take a few minutes to look at that was in, I believe, International Business Times, an investigative report by David Sirota talking about the FBI investigating funds invested in just such private equity investment that you have approved. Now, I recognize that the resolutions are not binding, but they do give direction to our legislative people. So I have some information on you. I hope you can take consideration and maybe take action on that or consider that. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor Strickland, Deputy Mayor, and fellow council members. I have two asks tonight. I am a resident of Tacoma, and I've been a resident for a very, very long time, and I love Tacoma. I work in many different places outside of Tacoma, but I make my bed in Tacoma every night when possible. It was brought to my attention not but less than a week ago that there has been in process a methanol plant for over a year and a half. And as a citizen of Tacoma, I am very concerned in the process of how the word, the knowledge of the process, what's being happening has been spread. I haven't heard anything. I heard it up north when I was on a reservation at La Conner. And that's where I heard it. Not from the citizens of Tacoma, not from the hundreds of people, and I promise you, it is 100 people that I've talked to since last Saturday, and not one of them has said that they've known about the methanol refinery. And that is very concerning to me. This is a huge impact into our community. And my first ask is that you look at your process and how you are planning to spread the word on what's happening with the refinery. And I ask also, I still don't have the exact answer, and I seek the answer on how this proposal goes about. Do we have say? Is there a vote in it? Are you guys voting on it? My understanding is that it's going through a process of 3 permits. And then I've gotten 2 different answers as far as if you guys are voting on it or not, or if it's pretty much done. But I do know that there are 2 hearings coming up, and the first one is next Thursday. So that is my second ask. My second ask is that there are 9 of you here, and my hope is that I would see 9 of you there, because I know that there are going to be hundreds of other people, and they've already confirmed on social media. That's the only place that I've seen it, and now a couple of news stations have started to cover it, that are going to show up, and they were going to want to know, and they're going to want, they want answers, and they have questions. And you guys, as elected officials that stand here to say that you are here to represent us, you should be there to hear our concerns and to answer our questions and to speak to us and to show us that you care, and that shows that you are here to represent the citizens of Tacoma, not the citizens of China. So I am leaving this invite for you, and then I ask that you please come and put your name tags on so people know who you are. And so if they have questions, they can go to you, and they can see that you guys do care, that they didn't make a mistake by voting you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Claudia Wiedner. Dear City Council members, Mayor, City Manager, what is the most important function of government? During the November 10th City Council meeting, you approved the interlocal agreement with the Port of Tacoma to allow Puget Sound Energy, a Bellevue-based, Australian-owned, for-profit utility, to build a liquefied natural gas tank in the middle of our city. Puget Sound Energy wants the 8 million gallon liquefied natural gas tank so they can store cheap summer gas at minus 260 Fahrenheit and sell it back to us for profit in the winter. The Society of International Gas Tank and Terminal Operators states that LNG gas storage tanks need to be located at least 3 miles away from any civilians. That's why these LNG storage tanks are usually built out to sea. The Terminal Siting Standards Society is the authority on LNG siting standards. Virtually the entire world of liquefied natural gas industry holds a membership to this safety group, except Puget Sound Energy. During explosions at an Eastern Washington LNG facility last year, the fire marshal declared a 3/4 mile lethal zone around the facility. Everyone within a 2-mile radius had to be evacuated. Within that 2-mile radius in the city of Tacoma, you have Highway 705, you have State Route 509, you have some of I-5. How will you evacuate the people if something should happen? The company that had the LNG explosion in Eastern Washington, Williams Company, would be the gas company supplying the proposed methanol refinery. The foreign-financed methanol refinery would be constructed within a 3/4 mile blast zone of the LNG facility. You approved already. The methanol refinery would produce and store 300,000 metric tons of highly volatile and flammable methanol within the blast zone of the LNG facility. I ask you again, what is the most important function of government? The most important function of government is to keep the people safe.
So what's interesting is the relationship between the City of Tacoma and the Port of Tacoma. The Port of Tacoma has its own elected body, and they run as their own junior taxing district, and they own property. And what the Port of Tacoma has right now is an energy industry. U.S. Oil has been there for a long time on the tide flats. Puget Sound Energy is building an LNG plant. There's a proposed methanol plant. And I think one of the things that's really important as we have these conversations about what should or should not be there is to understand the comprehensive, full suite of what's going on down there. And I'm not here right now to tell you that I oppose or support something, but I think it's really important that you all have conversations with the people who are actually the property owners who are making these decisions. And I want Ian to talk about the legalities of the role of this body, what we will and will not do, what city staff are working on, and then also how this came to be with the Port of Tacoma. Because I think, for a lot of people, this can be confusing because we're your elected officials. You see us. We're here present all the time. But there's another elected body that has, in my opinion, a much bigger role in all of this. And so while you are coming here to us to talk to us, which I appreciate, they should have your audience too and your attention as well. Because I was at an event at the University of Washington, Tacoma about another topic, and I was with a port commissioner, and most of the questions were directed toward me as though there was no role for the Port of Tacoma in this. So I want to make sure that everyone who is involved in this process has the opportunity to fully hear from the people who have concerns about it. Go ahead, Mr. Muntz.
Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience, I've had really great conversations with a lot of people in the audience and with email and phone calls over the last few months to really last 2 months really to sort of clarify the issues that you did a good job, Mayor, of doing for me, which is the port is the landlord. They have signed a lease. Some people were under the early conception that somehow the city council had voted to support this. That's not the case. Some people were under the impression that somehow city staff was supporting this. And city staff has not taken a position on this. So we've clarified a lot of those basic things, and now we're really getting into the bigger questions. The first thing is that we have a development application. You're not being asked to make a policy choice. We're in the permit due process scenario where an application is being submitted. It needs to be properly treated, just like any application. So that's the mode we're in, and as speakers have referred to earlier, we started a scoping process, and I'd like to step back a little bit and talk about who isn't involved. It appears, and I'm going to use that word in all my comments, it appears at this point there is no federal role in siting of this facility. People may agree or disagree, but it doesn't look as if the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has a role in where this plant is sited. They do have a role, and they'll be starting a process fairly soon to consider running the gas line from the Puyallup area from the existing interstate pipeline to Tacoma. So there will be a federal process on the pipeline, but no federal process that we're aware of on the siting of the facility. So that's the first thing, and we've been learning this over the last few months. This next thing we learn is that the State Site Evaluation Council, because of the characteristics of taking natural gas and processing and exporting it, does not appear to have a role in this. And so there's no state permit review on a siting issue. They will have pieces of it. So the third thing that came along was the State Department of Ecology was reluctant to be the lead agency to do the environmental reviews necessary for this project. The city stepped forward and said we would be the lead agency to do the studies, to answer the questions that you've heard this evening and before. So the city has stepped forward to say we will be the lead agency in evaluating this project. After the work evaluation is done, it will go to multiple permit agencies. The Puget Sound Air Quality Agency will have a role in that permit, and we've been in discussions with senior staff at their agency as to what they're looking for, how they will evaluate it. We will be working with Department of Ecology on stormwater and other water quality issues. They'll have a big role in those permits. The city will be involved in a shoreline permit, ask, and the federal agencies will be drawn in with core permits and other issues. But it's very much, it appears today that this is a City of Tacoma siting decision, a permit decision, and we have about a year at the applicant's expense to do the research to determine whether this location can work or not. And so with that sort of context in mind of looks like the city's in the lead on preparing the environmental documents. We have a huge opportunity and a responsibility to do that properly, involve everyone. The scope. So the scoping process is basically, it's not a city staff-driven process as to what we study in this environmental impact statement. We are reaching out to this first scoping hearings on the 21st, but we're taking written comment through February February 17th, and we've already got the first round of comments in from Northeast Tacoma Community Council. They've identified 8 issues that they think are critically important. We've heard issues this evening. We're going to hear more issues on the 21st. So at the end after the 21st, we will put our first draft together of what we think should be the scope of work for this environmental review. And then on the 16th of February, we're going to talk to the public about whether they think we've got it right or not. Have we looked at the right issues about water, power, air quality, all of those issues? And then at the applicant's expense, we will hire a third-party independent environmental consultant firm, one of the national firms, to come in and evaluate the proposal, the applicant's proposal, not our proposal, the applicant's proposal. We will evaluate that. We will hold it, we'll issue a draft this summer and be totally accountable to you and the people in the room as to how good that document is. Take comments as to whether we have done the quality of work that people expect. Take comment on that. Then there'll be several more months where we do further research. And at that point, the leadership in the city, the planning director, the fire chief, public works director, will look at whether the EIS, what the environmental impact statement should say. Can this location be appropriate with certain mitigations, or can it not? I mean, we are going to have a document that is going to attempt to answer that question. Or can it with 30 conditions, or can it on a different scale, can it with using different inputs rather than potable water? What are the options? And so I just stand here this evening to say we're going to do that. City manager is very clear, we're going to be very open, very transparent, as you have, Mayor, process and involve everyone who wants to be involved. But we are in a permit environment, and it doesn't appear at this stage that the council has a policy role to play. I mean, that early days, but it appears that we're firmly in the permit category, and you aren't being asked to change city policy to do this. It's a site that's zoned for industrial use, and the port has signed a lease with an applicant, and we are struggling with evaluating that proposal.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And as we said, there will be 2 public meetings. The first will be on January 21st at 6:30 at the Convention Center, and then the second will take place on February 16th in Northeast Tacoma.
At Meeker School, we've confirmed with the school.
Yes, at Meeker Middle School.
Yeah.
So, we're working with the Neighborhood Council. We want to hear from folks. We want to get your input. This is really important. And, as I said to someone before, it's like, Tacoma is no longer a city that is desperate for any type of development. We want to make sure that we are doing the right thing for the people who live here and the people who will live here one day. So I want you to understand that we take this very seriously, but I wanted to make sure that Mr. Muntz was able to clarify what our various roles are. But I will say this, the Port of Tacoma has a Board of Commissioners, and they meet on a regular basis, and I encourage you to talk to them and express your concerns with them as well. So I'll end with there right now.